Brandon, I'm excited for this one because it's been a minute. It's almost been a year and a half since we talked to our next guest, and I'm excited because they got some new products. We're going to get to try some things that are at least new to us, and I'm pretty excited about it. So before we get into I got to ask, how you doing? Life good right now? I mean, weather's crazy here. It's like 80 degrees in Lexington today.
I mean, it is wild. Like it's golf season I think, is here. So I'm excited about that. Everything else is good. Can't complain. Just happy and blessed, man. So
I'm confused. I thought you guys were in Kentucky.
I
we
know, and
are.
it's
You said the weather
Lexington.
was good.
I don't understand. I don't
It
understand. It
is.
was it was 40 degrees
I
last
was
week.
in Louisville, you know, I
Yep.
was in Louisville 2 weeks ago. I swear to goodness, they must roll out the bad weather every time I come. But I was like in Louisville, and again, it was gray and dreary. And I was at a discus board meeting, and I was just like, they were like, everybody introduce yourself, and I was like, welcome to Louisville, Kentucky, the only place in America that makes Cleveland, Ohio look tropical.
Yep.
We get all four seasons in one day, literally.
Absolutely. Yep.
Well, Brandon, should we welcome in our next guest? He is based out of
Absolutely.
Statesville, North Carolina. He does visit us up here in Kentucky on occasion. Hopefully, next time you'll have better weather. I will say though,
Not possible.
most weeks that we have started and done and talked to here lately, me and Brandon, it's been coming off of 40 degrees and snow. So it's been nice to actually have a little sunshine this week.
Yes.
But let's welcome in.
Bless
He's the
you.
co-founder. He's the co-founder of Southern Distilling, Pete Barger.
Barger.
Feet.
Ah, I paused,
Barger.
but I think I got it.
Nice. Welcome.
Pete, welcome back.
Excited about this.
Yeah, well, thank you guys. I enjoy our time together last time, and looking forward to chatting about these things. And you've got some interesting things on the menu for tonight. So
That we do. We're going to really hit just about anything and everything you do down there. And first up, last time we had, and it's Paragon, right? Is that am I saying that right? The
Paragon, yeah.
the Southern Star Paragon. We had it just the regular version. Now we're doing the cash strength, which comes in at 111.7. The weeded.
Okay, so I'm like curious, what's the batch number on that particular release?
That's a good question. Where would I find that?
It should be just to the left of the proof point, I'm thinking.
I'm not seeing it. I just get the 55.85
All right, we'll go with
ABV.
that. You say it's 111. Okay, there you go.
Point 0.7, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So we changed our labels around. So that just goes to show you, even though I'm the co-founder of the company, I can't keep track of our own labels. So, but that 111, I remember.
Yeah.
So what can you
That's
tell us
awesome.
about this bad boy?
All right, so Paragon, that is our wheated bourbon line. So it's a 70, 16, 14 mash bill. So that's 70 corn, 16 wheat, 14% malted barley. Pretty familiar mash bill. We know that's in a lot of other products that we all love. When I first started laying down that 70, 16, 14, 10 years ago, people like looked at me cross-eyed, like, why are you laying down wheated bourbon? Nobody wants wheated bourbon. Well, guess what? Today, everybody loves wheated bourbon, and we got lots of it. And that Paragon is, that's my pride and joy. That's my go-to. I mean, we all talk about what's your favorite. Well, they're all my kids. I love them all the same. I love Paragon a little bit more. And the thing that I love about the cask strength is that there's no dilution. It's just it's just all right there. One of the things that people may find curious, I hope they do find curious, is wait a minute, if it's cask strength, how is it 111? That's a great question. So all of those products, bless you. It seems like you got the pollen there as well as the 80 degrees.
I did. Something went wrong.
Yeah.
It's not the whiskey, trust me.
No, I got you. I got you the same problem, right? Everything is yellow, covered with pine pollen right now, right? But no, that 111 is lower than you would expect for a cask because we go into the cask at 105.
Ooh.
So it's picked up 6 or 7 points over the last 8 years that it's been in that cask.
And do you guys do that to also when you do the regular Paragon, not have to dilute it nearly as much?
Well, no, I mean, our proof point for our products are typically 105 to 110, usually
Okay.
105 for the stuff that goes into our brand. You guys probably know that most of what we do is contract distillation for clients. That's the bread and butter of our business. The brand is really, it's, I won't call it an afterthought, but it's a very small part of our business. It just allows us to demonstrate and showcase capability and competency. And we often can't talk about our clients, but we can talk about us, and this just gives us an opportunity to show off what we can do. But for our own products, we choose to go in lower than what a typical cask would get filled at for a client. And why we do that, and there's other brands that I won't name, but you guys can name them. They hail from there in Kentucky. They go in at 105, 107, 110. A whole bunch of them go in at 110. And the reason for that is that, yeah, there's several reasons, but less dilution for sure. Math is math. If we go in at 125 and you're going to, bring it down to 100, you got to put a lot more water in. And, I don't want the water, I want the distillate. So you got to go into lower proof point. But the other thing is that we find, and I think most people find, that when you go in at a lower proof point, you get better nuance in aging from your cooperage. When you stop and think about it, God put trees and water together for a reason. He didn't put trees and ethanol together. And so the higher the ethanol content at a point, I think it impacts the way that wood really breathes in and pushes back out and extracts all of those beautiful wood sugars and vanillins and things that we want that are just behind the chart. So, and we're not the only ones who feel that way. There's some other great brands out there that tend to go in at lower proof. I mean, prior to 1962 or 1963, it was the federal law. You couldn't go in at more than 110. And the folks that petitioned for that law to be changed to go in at 125, it wasn't to look after consumer quality. It was to lower cost. Fewer barrels, lower cost.
See, we're getting a lesson too, Brandon. I like it because sometimes I forget all these little things. You just you get so involved in the day to day of just enjoying bourbon and all the latest trends, but there is a historical thing behind some of this, and I'm liking this.
What's your thoughts, John?
111.7. I'm afraid to ever say anything anymore after I dropped things last time. So my thought is I'm finally getting my my bearings back after coughing for 5 minutes. I blame a puppy that's right next to me.
This is I think this is fantastic. Which my favorite, majority of my favorite types of bourbons. If I have the choice, is the higher proof, at the cask strength, the full proof, whatever you want to call it. Just because I think it just provides so much more flavor, depths of flavor, especially if it's done right, which I know you guys do things right. You know that it's cask strength from like as soon as you take a sip, and when it hits the back of your throat, but it's in a good way. It ain't that way where it's just like, it just burns a hole in the back of your throat. Like in it, and it doesn't. And going down, it doesn't even give you that deep, warm Kentucky hug of some cask strengths do higher proof stuff. But I think that just goes again. What I always say, it's like it just gives you that depth of flavor and all across the board on it. And when you do that, that's why I love it so much. Is that you get that. And it just mellows everything out. Even with the higher proof, like that, just depth of flavor just always just comes through. But I think it's great. I love it.
So you said something, Brandon, just there that I really want to stress for your listeners and your viewers. You like the higher proof because it just has a greater depth of flavor. But I would ask you to really think about that. It's not the higher proof that you love; it's the depth of flavor, and
Correct.
A lot of times the consumer thinks the only way I can get that is with higher proof. It's not the proof, it's the fact that it's not diluted.
Correct.
And so that's the thing that, of course,
Yeah.
it's my baby, so we're going to like love our baby. But,
Right.
we believe that depth of flavor is what people really enjoy. And that lower proof point, because it went into the barrel at a lower proof, allows you to enjoy it without, that, whoa, holy crap, that's 132 proof, This is, I can sip on this. It's hard to sip on 132 proof without putting a little water.
Yep. 100%. And that's not stuff to say, and if everybody, that's listening and watching, it's definitely not to say that even your lower proof stuff can't have tons of flavor and depth of flavor. By no means. It's just, personal preference for me and just experience. But you're right. I love love that depth of flavor, not the, higher proof, if you will.
Yeah.
Well, that's kind of why I mentioned that earlier about, going in at that lower proof, because it's something that the more I think about stuff and the more we've gotten to talk to folks, and just the aha moments where sometimes you just don't ever think about that point, but the dilution makes a huge difference. And it's cool to see this one actually went up. And, as we started this, I was not a big fan of wheated bourbons. That was just not my cup of tea. I eventually went into the high rise and rise. So Brandon and I know we're both looking very forward to our last pour of the night, the double rye. But as we've done more of these, I think, like you said, Pete, more people have gotten into wheated, and therefore some more things have come on the market. And I think there's some better stuff that is now out there that I have gotten to try, because I've actually become one that looks forward to trying some of these things. So I know there's a few wheated out there that everyone always was chasing for a long time, but
yeah.
When everyone else started doing some things, I was like, I don't know about that. But this one's got, even to me, a hint of spice in there, and it's a nice rounded flavor.
I think that the other thing that you said about the wheaters is that the chase. So much of those really great wheaters that we appreciate, you not only have to chase, but you have to pay a lot for, because it's all allocated. We won't name names, but we know who they are.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing is that it's nice when you have a product that's accessible, that you're not paying too much for, and you can just go get it and enjoy it. I am going to name a name, and this is in honor of a brand that I have a lot of. Frankly, why do I do what I do with this wheated is because Old Weller was my go-to. I loved Old Weller, and I still do. But what do they say, that imitation is the most sincere form of flattery? So 70, 16, 14, right? It's a known quantity. This is our spin on that 70, 16, 14. But when we started the company 12 years ago, Old Weller was a bottom shelf brand, and I could go into any North Carolina ABC store, and I can tell you right now, it was $23.95 all day, every day, and I bought it by the case. Yep. That is not the case anymore. Right?
Nope. I remember distinctly 10 years.
But that's what consumers want. They want value. They want good product. They want it to be accessible, and they don't want to have to go into a lottery to get it.
Correct.
Great for Sazerac that they hit the lottery there and they won that.
Right.
Super.
Right.
But this is that great wheated product for everybody else, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, and speaking of obviously great products, and like we mentioned before on the show, like it's been a minute since we've talked to you, almost year and a half or so, almost two. And of course, a lot of those fans and listeners probably maybe forgot, but just give us a reminder, and everybody that's watching now, what led you and your wife to launch Southern Distilling, and my favorite part, a lot of people may not realize about the history of whiskey and distilling. Maybe not just whiskey, but distilling in Statesville. Yeah. So
no, I'll give you just the real quick 5 minutes. So, my wife and I grew up in family businesses, and we started our careers, and our family businesses unfortunately didn't last long enough for us to move into them. And we worked for other people, for years, but we always had a dream of starting a family business again. And we worked really hard, did a lot of research, but ultimately we've got a farm, and we wanted that business to be tied directly to agriculture. And this really started out as the idea that we were going to build a winery and a vineyard, on our farm.
Makes sense.
And I didn't know anything about wine. But, I knew ag, and I knew that we wanted to do something independent. But once we started doing the due diligence, we determined that wine was not really a great business for us to go into. But we really liked what we saw with beverage alcohol. Even though I'm from North Carolina, I went to school in California when Sierra Nevada and Anchor Steam and Ballast Point, they were all little brands, growing big, great culture, great family businesses. And we're like, make a note. We just saw a lot of the similarities that we saw back in the early 90s in craft brewing. We saw the same thing happening in the mid 2000s in distilling. And we're like, hey, that's what we're going to do. But, we saw all these people. I say all these people. When we started, there were 275 DSPs. Today, there's 3,000 or more. But everybody who was doing this was doing a micro distillery with a 50-gallon or a 200-gallon pot still. It was all out the front door. We're like, that ain't interesting. My background is building manufacturing plants. I wanted to go big. And, we put in continuous columns. We put in a lot of controls. We did stuff at a totally different scale than anybody else was really doing at that point in time. So we built our plant at the same time Wilderness built theirs, Bardstown built theirs. But our vision was a little different, maybe not so much from Bardstown, but I think fair to say than from what Wilderness was planning to do at that point. They were wanting to support a brand. We weren't really looking to grow a brand. We wanted to get into contract distillation because we saw that there was all these craft and emerging brands, and they all had the same juice going in the bottle. And they're all telling stories, and none of those stories were true because it was the same juice going in the bottle. And we were like, let's do it better. Let's really pivot to the brand, and let's let them have a real story. Let's let them take some ownership and authorship. And that's how we built the company. Today we serve more than 200 brands around the world, and that's our pride and joy. It's what we do. We would like to do more. We used to do a lot more. This little turn down that we're in right now is not super helpful, but this too shall pass. But anyway, that's how we got into business. But, we weren't in Kentucky, Brandon, so we had to do it kind of, instead of, oh, this is the way you do it, we were like, well, why don't we do it this way? And so we're making bourbon, but in a way that really brings a lot of new technology, automation, controls, data analytics that we just didn't see 12 years ago when we started. You see more of it today with some of the larger producers, but when we started, that just wasn't the way distilling was done. It was very traditional. We appreciate and celebrate that tradition, but the way that we make these products that can go nose to nose, toe to toe with any other brand is because we're really leaning into the data, the science, and the quality control. Now, on the whole other side of that, it starts at our family farm. Mm-hmm. We grow all that. We grow all of that wheat. We grow all of that corn. A lot of the rye. Even some of the barley that gets malted. We're growing it.
That's awesome.
But quality starts in the field 5 miles from here. That's where quality starts. So every pound of corn we grow. Every pound of wheat we grow.
I love that, and you talked about that. I know that's been a big thing for you too. Even if you can't grow it, you still source it locally, and you kind of have that regenerative agriculture thought behind it too. When this drops, it'll be April, which is Earth Month. So why is sourcing so locally so important to you too? Because I'm guessing to some degree you're able to actually pay attention to that too, just like you are the barrels in the rick house.
So I'm gonna tell you the real story around that. We didn't start out sourcing locally. We started out sourcing from the largest corn producer in the world. I won't say who that is, but you can kind of probably figure out who that is. And what we found is that the you would think that would be super consistent. It was super inconsistent. Every single truckload was different. Every single high wine ran differently. Every single fermentation was different. And again, we're looking at all the data. We've got all these, mass spectrometry, HPLC, all this stuff, and we're just looking at all this data, and we're like, it's all over the place. How can we define what we want to do and do it the same way every time if our raw ingredients aren't the same? And so we recognized the only way to control for that was to control the production. So we got into grain production almost as an accident, even though this was always tied to, the farm. We never intended to grow that much. I mean, we're going through 70,000 pounds a day. That was never the intention, but that's what it's grown to. But this was out of, if we want to do it better, we have to own that production. And the other thing relative to regenerative, that's the way that we've always grown grain. It's always been no-till drill. Let's really pay attention to soil quality, soil erosion. Let's not pay, a bunch of money for chemical nitrates to, nitrogen. Let's take all the spent grains and the stuff from the dairy and put back on there. We've never really moved away from that methodology of how you do farming. That's how we've always done it. And that's how it's still done in most of North Carolina. So it's not like we invented this. We just carried on that tradition.
Man, I love it.
I love to hear that. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's just, it makes, I think, a difference with what goes in the barrel at the end of the day. And like you said, it helps to make a good product at the end when you got good stuff going in to start.
That's the only way to control it.
Yeah. You still have the mini donkeys there?
You know it.
Yes.
As we say here, come for the donkeys, stay for the bourbon.
Have you made that into a T-shirt yet?
Yeah. We got a whole bunch of T-shirts. Yeah, the donkeys, that's the only time I can say ass and not get in trouble. So, I mean, we're always going to talk about the donkeys.
Of course. Absolutely.
Matter of fact, there's a big billboard right out front, what is
awesome.
it? Bourbons, cocktails, donkeys.
I
love that.
We actually had
fantastic.
a little TikTok trend that started around this because some guy was going down the road. He was like, "Hey, Mama, we got to turn around. We got to get some bourbon and go see these donkeys." So,
That's awesome. That's fantastic marketing.
yeah.
I mean, that's one way to get people in there. Come for the donkey, stay for the bourbon. I mean,
Absolutely. I love it.
Now, I know people love to talk about the donkeys, but I'm very curious about our next pour because I don't think I've ever heard of anyone finishing a bourbon or anything in Zinfandel Cask. So this is the limited edition series Zinfandel Cask Finish straight bourbon whiskey.
There it is.
I love it.
Oh.
I love it.
So what can you tell us about this guy?
Yeah.
Crazy accident.
Happy accident.
I have a friend and a client who is really into really good wine and bourbon. And he had a relationship with a little family-owned boutique winery in Sonoma called Carlisle. And wanted us to bring some of their barrels in and age product in. And I said, okay, fine. And they sent me 3 barrels. And there were Zinfandel barrels. And I'm like, good God, what am I going to do with these? Who's ever heard of a Zinfandel finished bourbon? So I was like, well, let's go. So we took some of that 70, 16, 14 and put it in there. And I don't know how long it was in here, to be honest. Probably longer than we expected. At least a year. But and then it took us forever to finally release it. It's been sitting in a stainless tank for years. For years, it's been sitting in a stainless tank. But look at that color. Isn't that color phenomenal?
I was getting ready to say that, or I was going to say that because when I poured it in the glass, I was looking at the color. The color is amazing.
So that's obviously coming from, well, it's not obvious, but that's coming from the Zinfandel, right? That's coming from the wine. But this is, no, you're right. It's not something you hear of. And again, I don't know a lot about wine, but I can tell you that this Zinfandel had a very high sugar content. I was told that, it was almost had the same sugar content as a port, which is very sweet. And we all know that port makes for a great finish, right? But
I was
this
gonna say I've heard of that one. I've heard
really-
of that and sherry in a couple.
Yeah, exactly. But this Zinfandel is just really, really something different. It's
Wow.
I like to say it's got a lot of dried fruit. It's got a lot of chocolate. I call it a dessert tray in a glass.
Wow.
Brandon, it's coming in at 108 proof as well.
It's I think it's a very complex flavor. There's just a lot going on. I will tell you this would never, ever, ever, ever be my daily go-to.
Yeah.
It's a thinking man's bourbon. I don't like to think that much.
I was gonna say, if you saw my face, I was going, wait a minute, what ride am I on right now with this? Because that is,
and I just like
that's different.
It's just there's a lot going on here, and it's not just I want to hang out and relax.
Yeah.
It's just like you're like, man, what am I tasting here?
Right.
But
I'm with you.
my boss is leaving. I'm waving goodnight. She's like, that's the other co-founder, the more important co-founder, my wife. But
Man.
But anyway, yeah, I mean, for my go-to daily drinker, Jonathan, I want something that's just relaxing. It's consistent. It's not asking too much. It's just there. It's gonna meet me how I am, and I'm gonna feel better after I drink it. Not that I don't feel better after drinking this, but it's complex. It's heavy. It's delicious, but it's like you just need a little bit.
Right.
That's why we package it in these wee little bottles.
Yep. That's a good call. Yeah, because
A little goes a long way.
you're right. There's so much. It's a roller coaster. Like you said, it's really good. I like it, but it's one of
It's
those
different.
things you could bring it. Yeah, it's different. Like bring that out, like once in a while when you're like, I don't know, maybe you're instead of getting ice cream or something, maybe you just want to. I don't know, maybe I want to drink some bacon.
That's why I said it's like a dessert tray in a glass, but it's an LTO. It's an LTO. It's what it is. I mean, we only made like 300 or 400 bottles.
Yeah.
And the reason is only had 3 barrels to, put it in, and we had evaporation and everything. So it was a very limited time offering, but it's just like it's one of those fun things that you get to do as a producer. It's like, what the hell? Let's try this and see if anybody likes it. I've got, you can't see it, but if I can pick up this computer and push it down on the floor down there, I've got 3 big hogshead cognac, actually Armagnac cask from France, obviously, that I think are like 65 years old. That we paid a ridiculous amount of money to bring out of cognac, and had a rare opportunity to bring these historic casks out, and so we filled them with bourbon, and who knows what comes from that. But it's one of those like fun experiments that we get to do. It'll never be like a big, we're going to build a huge brand with this. No, it's just a very limited release, that, primarily, our fans are going to appreciate, enjoy, and seek out.
Well, and honestly, how we're doing this flight night tonight is how I would love to do it. When there's some bourbon drinkers I would not put to the Zinfandel Cask Finish because they'd be very confused. But if you've got someone that's had a lot of different things, you give them the cash strength Paragon, and then you go, hey, if you like that, let me give you something a little fun and go down a little weird rabbit hole and see what you can find with it. And that would be something like this, because like Brandon said, and I think my face said it whenever I was thinking so hard, because I was like, wait, which flavor am I going for? Because like 4 different flavors hit me at the same time, but it was fun. It's a unique. Like I said, I'm not huge into wine. I've gotten into it more, but more on the red side. And this is interesting. This is just different but fun.
It is different, and it's very fun. Like you said, so just what is your philosophy, or what is your all's approach to doing finished stuff like this? Like
We
you
do
guys
a lot of finishing. We do a lot of
because
finishing.
you got the honey barrel that we actually love, the honey barrel that we got to try.
Nobody
That
else
was
does
amazing.
honey like that, by the way.
No,
That's like legit honey. That's like totally legit.
Yep.
But our finishing is like becoming more and more of a thing. I mean, finishing and blending. I think that blending is like really underappreciated in American whiskey. But great distillate doesn't necessarily make a great finished product if you don't have great blending. So I studied blending under Dave Shurick, who I'm sure you guys know. But Dave is my mentor, and spent all that time at Seagram's and Brown-Forman, and did all that work with blending at Woodford. But even though he didn't necessarily get a lot of credit, I think that he's really the palate behind Woodford and what Woodford has become, because he was a guy that figured out like we can do these small dumps and do really special things, but it's how we do the blending. When you're dumping 1,000 barrels at a time, there is no blending. As long as I'm cutting out of the rickhouse, boom, boom, boom like that vertically, there's no blending. It's just it's a rule of large numbers, right? It all comes out in the wash. But when you're doing 10 barrels or 20 barrels or even 50 barrels, blending gets to be very important, because these nuances that we found as faults in what we would categorize as a C barrel, we would never put that out as a single barrel. Those faults complement the A and B barrels and create that A plus. Can't make an A plus out of a bunch of A's. You got to have some B's and some C's. And that was a lesson that Dave taught me. And we spend, as far as my philosophy, it's going through your inventory and treating every barrel as a unique case and understanding how it's going to go into that blend in a meaningful way.
Love it.
Well, and it's unique too, because Brandon and I really, I want to say there's a brand we got to work with on some single barrel picks, but when you only have 6 barrels in them, and you take out that one crazy finish of the 6 and leave the 5 that are just the B's, it's not as good. There's got to be an interesting backbone, and I love that lesson that you guys have been able to pick up, because you guys have been able to do some fun things. And I also love the fact that you guys are trying different things. You got the Zinfandel, the Honey Barrel is one of our all-time favorites. You got cognac finish coming at some point, it sounds like. So it's exciting.
I think
stuff
that cognac is going to be a wait, which is a little disappointing, because I was planning to do an LTO with it this year. But, I took a 7-8-year-old bourbon and put in there, and I think it's going to take several years before I'm happy with it. It's been I don't know if it's just the volume of it. I was actually going to put it in our boiler room, and then I was like, oh, that's really a bad idea. Let's not do that. But I think it needs more heat. So we're going to stick it at the top of the rickhouse and let it kind of percolate. But again, all that experimentation is fun. And, we're working on a project right now where, it's not even our distillate, but with some distillate that, quite a bit of distillate that one of our clients owns, and it's got some problems. And I'm like, can you fix it? Well, I can't redistill it, so, and you don't have enough to blend it away. So we're going to have to fix it by finishing it. So, and that's, we're in the midst of working on that right now. And, but it's, it's stuff like that where you get to be creative and use a little, not just creativity, but bring in a little technology. When I say technology, I'm not talking about bells and whistles. I'm just talking about different ways of using the resources, whether it's used barrels, et cetera, different locations in the rickhouse, to really accomplish that change that's needed.
Well, I was going to say, it sounds like you also have the ability to, I feel like you guys can be patient at times, which, you guys, like you said, you've been around a little bit longer than most that came on, that people think about. They might be like, oh, that's a name I haven't heard. But like you said, you guys have been around for well over a decade now. And, for you, we were talking beforehand, like, things have changed just a little bit. There were 200 and some when you came on. There's over 3,000 now. Obviously the market's changed. Anyone that's looking at watching all these shows knows that things have changed and so forth. But for y'all, what has life been like as, time has gone on and where things are headed?
Well, obviously we enjoyed those times when it looked like there was no end to the rise in popularity of bourbon. A lot of the overheating, and that's really what it is. It's, a lot of people say, well, people just, bourbon is losing popularity. People aren't drinking as much, and that's not really what the data tells us. What the data tells us is that people are drinking, and bourbon hasn't really lost popularity any more than any other category. We're actually faring better than a lot of other categories relative to any sort of retraction in the market. So as a category, bourbon's safe, right? You just have to look at the more nuanced issues of what's happening. But our biggest issue is that we overproduced as an industry. We've got too many barrels sitting in rick houses, and not enough homes for that to go into. And quite honestly, it's not all good juice. There was a lot of stuff that was invested in speculatively by folks that weren't really in the industry and looked at it as a commodity, and it's not a commodity. A pound of sugar is a pound of sugar. A pound of salt is a pound of salt. A barrel of oil is a barrel of oil. A barrel of bourbon is not just the same as the next barrel of bourbon. Mm-hmm. And I think that what we see here as you talk about change is a consumer coming of age and recognizing, and frankly brands as well, that quality matters. And quality matters maybe more than provenance. Maybe a great product from a different state is more important than a mediocre product from Kentucky. I'm just saying. So, provenance is it will only take you so far, and at the end of the day, people are going to come back because of quality and value. And I think that that's where we live and kind of where we've hung our hat, so to speak. We know the quality is there, and we can sell a great product for 40, 45 bucks, 35 bucks that other people are, tagging $100 on. And look, let's be honest. This economy is not great right now. They're not like feeling really confident about, let me just go throw down $100 on something I don't know about.
Yep.
They're comfortable going, let me spend $35 or $40 on something that I can be confident about and I can believe in. And that's where we live. And that's what's changed. And I will tell you that I think that's good for the industry. And I think that's what helps this industry get through this correction. And those of us who make it through, we'll be one of them, are going to be better off, and the consumer is going to be better off.
Yep.
Well,
it's a lot easier. It's a lot easier to spend $40 to $50 on a chance versus $100 to $130 on a chance, especially for folks that hasn't tried something. Like it's a lot easier to do. That's kind of what we hang our hat on anyway, was value and quality. So I love that.
That weeded Paragon that you guys were talking about, the bottled and bond.
Yep.
Where is it? It's, boom. It is that one. The Ascot's best in category weeded bourbon this year, and we beat out bottles that are a couple $100. Yep. That's $49.95 all day, every day, and you can put your hands on it.
I believe it because it's that good.
It's good. And I think too, when you talked about how you guys got in or why you got into like something like this, you were out in California, Sierra Nevada, Anchor, Steam, all of those craft beer industry really went through this a couple years ago when all of a sudden everything was like, okay, you can put all the fancy things you want out there, but if it's not good anymore, I don't care. Like at a certain point, it no longer is fun to have the fancy thing if it's not good. You want just good quality things at a good quality price.
Yeah. And I think that is that's kind of what carries the day. And I think we've got work to do with educating the rest of the world on how good our native whiskey is, right? One thing that you mentioned a little while ago, and this kind of ties back in, the history that we have here in Statesville. So, great distillate, great bourbon comes from all parts of America. Clearly, Kentucky is king, but Kentucky wasn't necessarily first. And, Kentucky is not necessarily, that's not a stamp of like, oh, hey, everything that comes from Kentucky is great. Some of my favorite bourbons come from Kentucky. But, what's really cool is that the consumer today has an opportunity to buy great bourbons out of Texas, out of North Carolina, out of Virginia, out of California, out of Kentucky. Great bourbons come from everywhere. The so many of us have that history that's just not well known. Statesville, North Carolina, prior to 1903 was called the liquor capital of the world because we had so much distillate being produced here and shipped by rail to the Northeast. 30,000 gallons a day at one point. Now, nobody knows that history, but that's the history that we're riding on. That's what our foundation is built on. But again, that's the really great thing about American whiskey is that, there are real stories. There's a lot of fake stories too. There's a lot of fake news around bourbon.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of real news around bourbon that makes it just a patchwork of Americana. And we play right in the middle of that with our history here in Statesville.
Brandon,
Love it.
You ready for that third one?
Oh yeah. Next, so double rye.
There we go.
Double
I was
rye.
gonna say, you talk about blending. It's a blend.
Yeah.
Double
And there
rye.
he's got that new label.
This is release 17. Is what it says.
And I want to ask you, you can be honest. Do you
Yep.
love the fact that my bottling crew used a stamp to put that 17 on there instead of writing it by hand?
For me, I don't.
I don't. I was like, who the hell approved this?
Yeah.
Hold on to that. It's going to be worth big money because you'll never see it again.
I will. I'm gonna make when I finish the bottle, I'm gonna turn it into a lamp.
Yeah.
But
That was like,
yeah,
what genius decided to take it upon themselves how to change our label, right? That's supposed to be handwritten.
I'm with you on that.
I mean, I was gonna say, don't you have a say in some of this occasionally? Aren't you important there?
I'm supposed to. I have a say in everything that goes in the bottle, but apparently what comes on the label, I'm only
Is that
getting
something?
half a say.
Is that something your boss approved?
Negative. We both went to the ABC store last weekend because we were out of liquor, and we like to go buy it from the ABC store just to support the store. And I saw that, and I was like, what in the absolute hell? How did that get on there?
I foresee Pete doing a little more quality control on the floor.
Yeah,
That's already happened.
yeah, absolutely.
It doesn't spoil what's in the bottle, though, Brandon. What's in the bottle is still good.
I agree.
So what can you tell us about what's in this bottle?
Double rye, as the name would connotate, it's got 2 mash bills. So we take a 95.5, which we distill. Everybody knows that 95.5. We make a lot of it. It's my 95.5 is different than other people's 95.5 because of our yeast selection, our cooperage, and the terroir of where it's aging. We tend to like ours a little better, but that's just me. I'm biased. But then we combine that 95.5 with the 5139.10. So I take basically the super high rye and the super low rye. I blend them together, and then I put them in a wheated bourbon cask, and I let them sit anywhere from 6 to 12 months. When it's done, it's done. And then we pull it out, and we cut it to proof at 88, and we barrel it or bottle it. So that's how it gets that double rye. But what I was looking for in this blend was I wanted a rye that I could drink neat and not wince. I wanted it to be something that I could just sip on. I wanted it to be not overpowering or overwhelming to someone who was, not a big rye fan, because rye can be a little much. But we wanted to have enough rye punch to come right through a cocktail like a Manhattan or an old fashioned and counter that sweet of the simple syrup with the rye spice. And it is our most popular, look, it's our most popular product. It's not what we're known for, but we sell an awful lot of it. It's also our lowest price product in the family. I think it's on sale in North Carolina this week or this month maybe for, I think it's $29.95 all day every day, $34.95.
Just Brian, just go get it because it's so different because Brandon and I love rye and we love the 95.5s and obviously high rye bourbon and things like that because the spice to us can be a little more sweet or rounded out, and this one's just unique because that other the 51 39 10 it just, I don't know, it's just something different, so unique to it that. But you're right, because at 88 proof, I was like, well, that could be, maybe not as much of a punch, but you still get the kick of some spice in there, and so like a rye lover like us, there's still some flavor in there that, I might not have been expecting at first.
Everybody was like, "Why'd you do the 88? Are you trying to be cute?" I was like, "No, I literally proofed this thing from 80 up to 100 in two proof points, and I did blinds, and I kept coming back to 88, and so 88 was the number, and it did all the things that I wanted, not too much, not too little, and this is all about balance. This is not trying to do this or that. It's all about balance, and I think we did okay with it.
John, this is that Monday, Tuesday bourbon.
Oh yeah.
You come home from a long day of work on Monday, Tuesday, just come home, pour you a couple glasses of this. You'll be
feel
fine.
better.
You'll be fine. You'll feel better. You still get that bourbon whiskey kick of that long day, kind of relaxes you. Nothing too strong, but it still packs a ton of flavor. You still get the little bit of the spice from the rye on the back. But I personally, I gravitate obviously toward the, if you ever do a double rye again and you go back toward the other spectrum, I can't wait. If you went through 95, 100 proof, whatever. But I appreciate where you're going with this, because as advocates of rye, as John and I are, this is a very, very fantastic introduction to it as well, especially with the double rye.
Speaking of introduction, I want to introduce you to Bottled and Bond rye.
Ooh.
What?
Yeah, that's our new release. This is our new kind of flagship rye. So this is a 513910, so it's not a blend. It's 513910, but it is a Bottled and Bond. All of this release here is 5 to 6 years of age.
John, we got to go to North Carolina.
That's one you need to try.
Yes, 100%. That will.
Yeah. Or next time my mother goes through, hey, Mom, can you stop at the liquor store?
Well, I have been guilty of sending samples out to friends, so we'll make sure you get a bottle, and we'll talk about it the next time. We don't have to wait a year and a half to talk. You know that, right?
Oh no, we do not. Mm-mm. No, I'm with you on that one for sure.
well, and I love what you guys are doing down there, and you talk about the history of Statesville, what you guys are doing there. People can come visit y'all. They can check out the donkeys. They can have a good pour. For you all, a lot has changed down there to get to that point where people can come visit y'all, can enjoy things at the distillery. Can you talk about all the fun you've had with that? Because I also believe, is Discus something you helped launch as well? Is that correct? Am I remembering right on that?
Well, I sit on the board at Discus, and that's our Federal Trade Association, Distilled Spirits Council of the United States. We helped launch DANC, which is the Distillers Association of North Carolina. Vienna really started with that group before I did. I was still working my day job, taking my paycheck and putting it in the bank and then writing paychecks for employees. And she was kind of here, running the house while, I was doing the day job thing. And so it took me 5-6 years of kind of working during the day and then doing this at night before I could actually come on board full time. But anyway, back to the Distillers Association of North Carolina. She started on the original board. Ultimately, I came in several years ago. I think I'm on my 10th or 11th, term as president. I'm kidding. It feels like 10 or 11. I think it's only 4. But when we started the business, we could not sell a single bottle of liquor out of our front door. And the tasting room could only pour 4 quarter-ounce samples. Couldn't even provide any sort of mixer. It had to be straight. And we worked really, really hard to change those laws. And today, I would tell you, we have 137 DSPs in North Carolina, craft producers. We were one of the first handful. And we have really one of the most generous and lenient and supportive legal environments to work in as a craft distiller. So today we can sell cocktails, we can sell beer, we can sell wine, we can sell an unlimited number of bottles, we can sell on Sunday, we can do tastings in the stores, and this is all stuff that the Distillers Association has really accomplished over the last 8+ years. But we've played a role in that, but we've had a lot of great people marching right along beside us to really take North Carolina from a state that was super restrictive to really what I would say is top tier relative to craft distillation.
Well, and I feel like people always see the side now where they go in and they can do all those those things and they forget the work that it took to get to that point.
Brother, you said a mouthful just then. We just had our annual meeting yesterday, and I just said, guys, a lot of you weren't here 10 years ago, 12 years ago. Let me tell you what it was like. Don't take this for granted, because what was hard fought for can be easily taken away if you take it for granted. So remember where you came from, remember the fight, and protect those rights. Protect what we built here. That was exactly the speech that I gave, to our membership yesterday. So I appreciate you saying that, because it's also true.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And we appreciate that, obviously, because you guys make a fantastic product. I know we talked about the rich history there in Statesville with the distilling. All the NASCAR fans out there might probably want to get down there and check it out, because I'm pretty sure it had something to do with that. But if you can tell us, anything that's really cool coming down the pipeline, new releases. If you can't really say anything online, obviously we'll chat offline.
Let me think of what I can talk about.
You mentioned the bottled and bond rye.
Right, you showed us that one.
Relative to
that's already out. That's already out. That's already released.
Yeah, relative to product drops, the bottled and bond is new. Let me think what I can tell you without giving up too much.
Another honey barrel coming in the fall, winter?
Well, there's always going to be a honey barrel. There's always going to be a honey barrel. Yeah. I will tell you that relative to the brand, we are working diligently on our packaging and branding. So stay tuned, because I think you're going to see some big shifts in branding. I know you're going to see some big shifts. My plan is that you see those big shifts by Q3, and it might even blow your mind, but we're still doing the same old. It's just the packaging now. Vienna and I started this like 11 years ago, like drawing shit on paper, and you love your packaging. We're like, we think it's a little tired. I think it's time to do something different. So look for something big there, Q3. You're the first to hear it.
I'm here for it.
The other thing I would say, just relative to some of the work that we do with our clients, one of the brands that we do get to talk about that really appreciates what we do with sustainability and regenerative piece is Brothers Bond. And so the boys from Brothers Bond are going to be here in another month to do a filming for a very, very special release. And I can't tell you what that is. I can tell you it's our regenerative product that we've done for them. But they're going to film it on site. We're kind of their home distillery, only because we say, come and make this your home.
Now, Pete, before you go too far, Brandon and I just did a review. I don't know if I've released it yet or not, but we had their 7-year-old bottle. I forget what it was, but that was fantastic. Yeah. Do you have that one nearby?
Yeah, I do have it nearby.
Yeah, Ian does a great job with his blending. Ian has got a great palate, and so we're very proud of that relationship.
It's the bottle. It's the bottle and bond 7-year.
But what they will be filming again, I think it has some tie into Earth Day, but it'll be that regenerative product that we developed for them along the way. But anyway, that'll be exciting. That's going to be coming. So those are the two little tidbits I would say. Look for that Brothers and Bond product that's going to be happening, and that'll be out on all the social media stuff. But also look for our new Welcome to the World branding exercise that'll hopefully be done sometime Q3 or Q4. Nobody else knows about that. Don't tell anybody. It's a big secret.
No, just us. We're in the trust tree. Yeah,
I heard
we're
nothing.
here.
I heard nothing.
I hear nothing.
Now, very last thing. Obviously, we love Southern Star. We love what you guys have been able to do down there. We love now that I never pieced together that Brothers Bond was there, which I really pride myself on figuring out where a lot of these things are. So I'm going to do some more digging. But I mean, you guys are making such good things. So if folks want to buy your products, where can they find them?
Okay, the sad truth is that we were in 23 markets 2 years ago and losing our butts. And so we have pulled back from 23 markets, and we're really focusing on, we just got to own our home market. And it may sound selfish, but we want to be the brand that people associate North Carolina with, and we're doubling down, tripling down on the North Carolina market. Which is why you won't find us in Kentucky and a lot of the other states that we were in prevalently before. Yeah. We do have an online capability, so if you click that button to buy here. We do DTC to all the states where it's legal. So that's one place, and there's the tool that's on our website where to find us. All I can tell you is that unfortunately, we're going to be harder and harder to find in those markets just because we've had to kind of pull back and then refocus on the home market. And a lot of brands are kind of facing the same realities right now. But so the good news is that DTC channel is still widely available. And I would like to say that in the next 3 to 4 years, we go back out into broader distribution. But we need to be really smart about how we do it.
Yep.
And all it takes is coming to visit and seeing the donkeys, or going to the beach and stopping by along the way. I mean,
we're open 7 days a week. Come see us.
I love it, and folks, you will not be disappointed if you visit, try these, or if you're able to find them or get them sent to you. Because, Pete, I love what y'all are doing down there, and I think, to Brandon's point, one of our favorite things is, one, there's transparency with what you guys are doing, but two, it's a hell of a price point and a hell of a product, and that's hard to beat.
Yeah. You can't beat that.
Well, I really enjoy talking to you guys. I don't stay here at the office until 9 o'clock just for everybody, but I'll stay here any night for you guys. So
we really
appreciate that.
We really appreciate it. We appreciate your time. Can't wait to do it again.
Shall we, Brandon?
John, we're not waiting another year and a half.
I promise I'll be better. But shall we do our normal?
Normal.
All right.
Cheers.
Cheers, guys. Thank you.
Cheers.
All right.